I want to enjoy it. So if I know that I'm not going to enjoy something, I'm not going to do it. I've been wanting to get into triathlons for ages. Didn't tell anyone I was doing it. I was like, cool, I'm just going to turn up and do it. And I absolutely loved it. It was the best thing I've ever done. I actually had a really bad bike accident two years ago. I actually broke my jaw, and a lot of people were like, how on earth did you come back after that? Yet I'm now going through a situation where I haven't even come off my bike and I'm almost worried to get on my bike. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing this? This is absolute hell. I could just jump on the tube and it'd be so much nicer. But the other half of me, and the majority of the time, is like, I couldn't be happier. I'm Paris, and it's a bit of an awkward one because I want to be like, oh yeah, I'm a cyclist, but at the same time, like, whilst I am a cyclist, like I'm not a full-on cyclist. So I guess I'm just your usual late 20-year-old female living in London, just trying to do things that I enjoy, I suppose.
I think we can call you a cyclist for the purpose of this. Where did that first come into your life, cycling? Because I've read a couple of things in preparation for this, and you seem to be a sporty kid, right? You've always seemed to love sport.
Yeah.
But when did cycling first become a thing?
It's a bit of a weird one, actually, because if you asked me this like years ago, I wasn't a cyclist. I didn't cycle. I literally hadn't been on a bike. I'm from Norfolk, so the middle of the countryside. So I had like, you know, an awful like mountain bike kind of thing that was purely to like get down to the shops. But other than that, I had literally never been on a bike. So of all things, it actually came about in lockdown. So one of the companies that I was working at wanted us to come back into the office like during lockdown, like when companies were allowed to get employees back. And I was like, what on earth are we doing? Why are we going back into the office? And I wanted to sort of put my foot down and be like, well, I'm not getting on the tube. But I also didn't think I was fit enough to run that far because it was probably only about 10K actually. But I mean, this was, I don't even, when even was lockdown? Like 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
God, I feel like I've blanked it out of my memory somehow. Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, along those lines. But at that time, like, I think I felt like I was incredibly unfit. So I felt like I couldn't even run 10K to get to the office. So I was like, right, my next step is bikes. And I had a very kind friend who ran up the road to the nearest Santander thing to get a Santander bike for me. Because again, they were too far. But I was like, how else am I going to get in? And he was like, you could do this, you could like run to this point to get a bike and then start going into the office. And I was like, you know what, no, I'm just going to get my own bike. So I got myself like a little fixie and started cycling into the office. And it all went downhill from there. Because you start seeing everyone else on nicer bikes than you, in nicer kit. And you're just like, wow, I need to get myself into this rabbit hole. And it literally started like that. So it was basically thanks to lockdown and my office making us go back into the office at the time.
Why is it stuck? Because I'm sure over the years you've done many different sports. We'll chat about running in the future as well, and triathlon and things like that. Well, why is this one stuck though? Because if you just look at your Instagram, it's the one that is there, right? It's stuck.
Yeah, it's very prominent. That's a really good question. I actually don't think I can answer it. It's, again, as I said, you start seeing people with nicer bikes, nicer kit, and you're like, oh, wow, I really want this. And it's funny with my Bianchi that I have, because I actually went for that, embarrassingly, for the colour. I love that colour. And I didn't realise that Bianchi was that colour. So I basically ended up finding one of those, and I was like, I really want this bike, you know, just purely for the colour, and, you know, it looked nice. But I couldn't tell you why it stuck. I think I loved it, like the freedom of it, the availability and ease of it, just being able to jump on a bike and going anywhere you wanted without having to worry about public transport, being around people. I think public transport made me very nervous as well, because there was just so many people around you. It was horrible. I honestly think it is only stuck just purely because there's so much more to it. You know, you can get nicer bikes, you can get nicer kit. There's so much more to it, and you just end up going into this rabbit hole. It's a wild one.
I think for anybody that's not watching this and just listening, I should probably mention at this point, I've just noticed your nails, which obviously are the same colour as the bike.
I've actually just had them done again this morning. It's been like this ever since I got my bike. Basically, from day one, it was like, cool, my nails are going to be this color for the rest of my life.
Until you get a new bike, I guess, then they can change. So will you get bored first of the bike or the nails, I guess, is the next big question.
Well, so I don't think I could ever get bored. Well, no, actually, I don't think I could get bored of either, to be honest. Even if I ended up going with a different bike, it would still have to be the same colour. So, yeah, it just so happens that Bianchi is that colour and it's going to stick.
It must feel very, very strange now looking back to pre-lockdown when you weren't, quote unquote, a cyclist, as we've said.
Yeah.
And now looking at not only the places it's taken you, but the people you've met through cycling.
Yeah.
Is that journey, do you ever reflect on it?
You know what, I do a lot, and especially looking through Instagram. I actually had like a really exciting call this morning about a trip that's sort of upcoming, and it has made me realise how incredibly lucky I am as to where cycling's actually taken me. Because if I look back 4 years ago, I was a totally different person anyway. I was a lot more anxious, a lot more sort of, I don't know, I was just a completely different person. I think cycling's actually made me more of a confident person. I think especially cycling in London as well, where you have to like look after yourself and almost protect yourself. But in terms of like the journeys, I mean, I've been on so many amazing cycling trips. This could be with like tourist boards, this could be with, people who organise trips abroad, etc., and also just, trips with friends with my bike. And it's been the most amazing experience to be able to go on holiday with my bike and experience places on a bike rather than just on, your typical sort of sunny holiday kind of thing. So yeah, I do look back on it a lot, and I'm like, wow, I was in a completely different place, because 4 years ago, it wouldn't even be a possibility that I was going to be going abroad with my bike and have anything to do with cycling. So it's a really nice sort of thing to look back on.
When you're in those moments as well, and I think it's so easy not to appreciate them, isn't it? Like if you've gone abroad to do a race, or you've gone abroad cycle touring, or you've gone, to a marathon in a different country, because you're kind of in it when you're doing it. Sometimes you don't like look up, and I know I personally have made like a very cognizant decision to, in these moments, actually look up and be like, oh my God, like this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's honestly amazing. And I think it does make a difference when you're there in a different country on sort of like a holiday for a different reason, as to, just your sort of standard sunny holiday kind of thing. And actually, I don't go on holiday if it isn't with my bike or for running or some kind of event these days. It's usually my bike is coming with me. But yeah, it's amazing that it's taken me to so many different places, and I do appreciate it so much. I'm very thankful for all of the sort of companies, brands, etc. that I've worked with to be able to take me to these places that I wouldn't have gone to before. Turkey being one of them, actually. I'd never been to Turkey, and then this year I've been 3 times. So it's one of those things, and that was with the tourist board, and it's like, wow, I would have never even thought of going to Turkey, and now I'm out here with the Turkish tourist board, encouraging other people to come to Turkey to go cycling, which I wouldn't even thought about myself. So yeah, it's that kind of thing that's absolutely amazing to sort of look back on.
Are there moments that stick out, trips that stick out, like particular places you've been, or is it kind of all one 4-year amazing thing to this point?
Yeah, there's not sort of one singular trip that's been like, wow, this has been absolutely amazing, because they all have been. They've all been up there. I think any trip that you're going on and I'm taking my bike, which is the one thing that I absolutely love, it's been amazing. There has been lots of lovely holidays where I've just gone on, just with friends, and it's just been sort of a friend trip kind of thing with bikes, and that's been amazing. But I think ultimately, especially working with sort of tourist boards, you do get a totally different experience, because you are sort of shown around more of the country, the area, etc., than you would if you were just going with friends. I think you do experience more. But no, in terms of if anything sort of stands out, I couldn't directly pinpoint like one trip. Like they've all been amazing. They've all been completely up there. So
it's really interesting to hear you talk about like going away with groups of friends and stuff. And I'm trying to relate it back to the person 4 years ago that you said was, quite anxious, didn't really want to go and get that bike. A friend went and got the bike type thing. It almost feels like there's 2 different people there, doesn't it?
Oh, it honestly is a totally different person. I've actually got two friends who argue over if they were the ones who got me into cycling.
I love that.
Well, I've got one mate who's like, no, you went on a Santander with me first. Like, I was the one who got you into cycling. You said you loved it. And the other mate's like, no, I went and got her the bike, and I'm the one who took her into the office and she wanted to go cycling. Like, I got her into cycling. So it is a totally different thing. The fact that I didn't even think that I could make it 10 kilometers down the road on a bike. And now, I've gone off and I've done the Mallorca 312, which is 312 kilometers in a day kind of thing. So I am a totally different person to who I was before I started cycling. It's very weird.
When you're 200 kilometers deep into a race or event, whatever you want to call it, like that, where's your head at? Are you still enjoying it at that point, or are you thinking, I wish they never put me on that Santander?
I think I'll be honest, and a lot of the time I'm like, what on earth am I doing? Obviously, as most people say, when you get to the end of these events, that's when you get the experience, and it's like, oh my God, I've completed this, I've done it. And I think there's times when I've been like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. Don't know why I ever got on a bike. But I think you have to throw yourself back into the sort of almost the reason why you started kind of thing. And it's, yes, it's an A to B, but ultimately it's an A to B, but you experience so much in between that.
Is it a headspace thing as well? Because, we've spoken about the places you've been, but cycling inherently is somewhere where you're spending quite a lot of time on your own, a lot of the time if you're not out in a group. Is that part of the reason that you love it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I do, to be honest, I am normally cycling with people.
Okay.
I do go on a lot of solo rides though. So if I've had a really busy day at work, I would love nothing more than just being able to jump on my bike, go around Richmond Park. Richmond Park is like my little playground. Like I know that it's a safe space as well. Like I don't usually tend to go out of Richmond Park on my own. I'm still like, there's still lacking confidence in that kind of sense. I'd prefer to be with someone. But if I just want my own space, I can chuck on my music and I can just go around Richmond Park for however long I want. And I know that it's a very safe space. It's definitely sort of it's one of those situations where I'm just, in my own mind with my music kind of thing. And there's been a couple of times when I've been on my bike where I've honestly had to think about it. And I've been like, this is the happiest I ever am when I'm on my bike. It's even when I'm commuting into work. I sometimes commute at 5. I think the earliest I've left is 5 a.m. And London is just so peaceful. It's dark outside. And I sort of think sometimes I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing this? This is absolute hell. I could just jump on the tube and it'd be so much nicer. But the other half of me, and the majority of the time, is like, I couldn't be happier. Like, I will literally be cycling along, smiling. Like, this is just the most amazing thing. It feels, I can't even explain it. It's a really weird feeling. It's just different.
It feels like you've accomplished something early at that point before everybody else has. That your colleague or the person you're speaking to is the hardest thing they've done that morning maybe is, and this is no slight on anybody that does this, but they've nipped to Pret and got themselves a coffee or whatever. You've done that already that morning, and it almost feels like a privilege to be up, doesn't it? At that time, you're out there, you're like, there is nobody here.
Yeah,
why?
It really does.
Am I in on a secret here that nobody knows?
Yeah, it's like if people haven't done that or been around, wherever they live, but specifically in London, it is just a whole different world when you're in London at sort of 5, 6 a.m. It's so peaceful. It's completely different, especially when you're riding a bike. There's no one else around. You kind of feel like you can do your own thing. You chuck your music on. It's lovely. I love it.
You mentioned confidence a couple of times. Is that something that you've struggled with over the years when you've kind of getting into cycling? And maybe for somebody that is in that position now, what would you say to them in terms of trying to gain confidence?
I think you've just got to keep at it. You've got to keep going. The last couple of weeks, actually, I've been going through a massive lack of confidence sort of patch. I couldn't even tell you where it came from. It's just come out of nowhere. I've been telling my friends about it, and I'm incredibly lucky to have a massive support system around me, especially within cycling. It's slightly different in London. Obviously, I know that, you know, lots of people cycle outside of London, but I think specifically in London, there's a sort of a hub or sort of, you know, it's just a support system in a sense. Everyone knows everyone who cycles in London. And I kind of know that if anything goes wrong or if I need anything, there's always someone around. So I'm always open speaking to people about these situations. And when it comes to a lack of confidence I've been going through recently, I feel like my back tire is just going to skid out underneath me. It's totally mental. It's not going to happen. But the amount of people that I've spoken to about it, and they're like, you just need to keep going. Just keep at it, keep going. And I'm like, actually, I really appreciate that, because it's the kind of thing that I think with cycling, it can knock you back massively. So I think it's just the encouragement of continue, keep going. I actually had a really bad bike accident two years ago. I actually broke my jaw, and a lot of people were like, how on earth did you come back after that? Yet I'm now going through a situation where I haven't even come off my bike and I'm almost worried to get on my bike. I haven't broken anything, I haven't had an accident. And it's like mind games for me. But I think if anyone else is going through that situation, or even just wanting to get into cycling, it is just the continuous, you just need to keep doing it, and realize like why you're doing it. And even if it's just, okay, cool, I'm doing this to get from A to B, that's sometimes a nice way to think about it, rather than almost going on like a pointless ride. It's like, okay, cool, I am getting on my bike to commute into work. That's my reason for doing it. I'm going to do that every day to build up my confidence.
Were those the sort of strategies you used when you did have that accident to come back?
Yeah, I think it kind of was. I think when I had that accident, again, because that was kind of 2 years ago, I think I was still sort of coming out of my shell. I was still in that period of coming out of my shell a little bit. But I think I just said to myself, I fractured my wrist actually at the same time, so I couldn't actually cycle. And my main frustration was not being able to get on the bike. Weirdly enough, it wasn't a worry of falling off or anything. It was a worry of I can't get back on my bike because I fractured my wrist. So I think when I did get back on it, it was, you know, just keep going, just carry on. Like you're not going to stop doing this. You're not going to give this up because you're almost going to lose that momentum. You just need to get back on and continue.
Do you have goals when it comes to cycling now? Like you say, like I want to keep carrying on. Obviously that confidence issue I'm sure will pass. And like you say to yourself there, like it's just carrying on. It's about keeping going. But do you look forward and think I'd like to do this, or is it kind of day by day?
I think I definitely take things day by day. A lot of people will know me for being quite flaky. So if I wake up and I'm not feeling the right mood, I'm not going to push myself. I'm not going to do something I don't want to do, which is not ideal. But I think I'm in my late 20s now. I'm not in that sort of spot where I need to be like, oh, I need to get out of my comfort zone. Like I'm past that. Like it's if I'm not feeling it,
I'm happy in it.
Yeah. There's goals in a sense of there's events, etc., that I want to do. But a lot of people also know me for someone that I don't go and train for things. I only do this because I want to be happy. That's like purely my reason for doing it. Like I'm not like I need to go out and do an Ironman in this, you know, this time or whatever. I'm perfectly capable of doing those things. So I'm kind of like, well, I don't need to go and train. I'm not going to go and train because I'm purely doing it for happiness. So if I'm going to be miserable training, I don't want to do it. So yeah, there's goals in a sense of, you know, continuing and certain events that I want to do, but not necessarily goals that I've set myself to do things. It's a very sort of, I think it's different to a lot of people I cycle with, because I think they've set themselves goals to do certain events in certain times, etc. Whereas I think I'm different in the sense that I just want to be happy. I just want to enjoy doing it. Like that's purely why I'm doing it.
I think though, that is the right way to do it. And it's so difficult because I've 100% fallen into the trap before where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this race? Or why am I putting myself through this when I've got nothing to prove to anybody here? Yeah. I'm absolutely hating it. I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't wait for next month because it's going to be over. And you're like, you're in the wrong place then, aren't you?
You completely. And I think I think that's why a lot of people almost ruin some of these things for themselves. I did an event in the summer actually that I kind of signed up without having a clue what it was with a mate, and it actually turns out it's an incredibly hard race, and if you look it up and ask people about it, it would be like it's one of those sort of top 10 ones that people should do, but it's also incredibly difficult. Well, I signed up without having a clue what I was getting myself into. Not having any idea, whereas my mate that was going into it had been training for it, he'd got a training plan, etc., and he was quite nervous about it because he wanted to get a certain time. He'd put that pressure on himself, and I think I remember the night before actually he could hardly sleep, whereas I was just like, what do you mean, what are you on about? Like, I mean, because again I was in the headspace of like, I'm just doing it for fun, don't really know what I'm doing, like I'm just going to turn up and we're going to do it, whereas he was in this sort of anxious boat of not being able to sleep because he'd put so much pressure on himself. And I think that to me is where I would find it unenjoyable, and that's literally not the reason I want to do it. I want to enjoy it. So if I know that I'm not going to enjoy something, I'm not going to do it. But ultimately there's certain events where you're probably not really going to enjoy it, but if you turn up cluelessly and don't really look into it, then you're probably going to enjoy it.
I think as well, when pressure enters like the conversation, that's when things can go wrong. It seems like when you go into a race or an event or whatever with minimal pressure,
yes,
then actually that's not only normally the time you enjoy it the most, but normally the time you perform the best.
Exactly, because you haven't set yourself any expectations. It's like the expectation is to do it and to enjoy it and probably just finish it. And that's the only expectation that I'll pretty much ever set myself. And I've only recently found that out, because I think I used to put too much pressure on myself, whereas now I'm just doing it for fun. I'm just doing it for enjoyment, and that's why I've turned up to it. So I think that massively takes the pressure off things as well. And I think I'll always be in that sort of headspace of I'm not doing it for any other reason other than enjoyment.
Talking of that then, this summer, Dorney, that was your first triathlon, I believe. How was that?
Yeah, first one. I didn't tell anyone that I was doing it.
I love that. I love that.
So I literally just said to myself, cool, like I've been wanting to do this for ages. I've got a wetsuit, but I haven't been swimming forever, etc., etc. My housemate, bless him, I was like, right, you're getting up with me at 5:30 a.m. and we're going to drive to Dorney and you're going to come and support me. And he was like, okay, cool, yeah. I bought him McDonald's in the end. That was his treat. Yeah, I've been wanting to get into triathlons for ages. I obviously can cycle. I know that I can run. I've always, been a runner kind of thing. And I used to swim like competitively actually as a child, but this was, years ago in school. So I knew that I could swim, but just hadn't done it. But I sort of said to myself, I want to do something new. I'm the kind of person that nothing is ever enough. Nothing is ever enough for me. So I was like, cool, I need like something else to sort of, to look forward to. And yeah, the Dorney one, I heard from a couple of people that it was a really sort of, it was more of like a local one. It wasn't that far out of London, easy to drive to, but also quite a friendly one. You'd get a couple of people who were doing it as, tests for going on to doing an outlaw or an Ironman. But you'd also get other people who were literally just there because they enjoyed, the three disciplines. So I was like, cool, this will be like the perfect one. But yeah, so didn't tell anyone I was doing it. I was like, cool, I'm just going to turn up and do it. And I absolutely loved it. It was the best thing I've ever done.
Do you think this is something that's going to stick? Because I know you've gone on and done another one. You did T100, right? In London? Yeah. Was that right?
Yeah.
Is this the next thing? Are we into triathlon now?
Yeah, I'm into triathlons, that's me. I'd actually signed up for the London Duathlon before it got cancelled as well. So I don't know how much I was looking forward to that one, because I kind of liked the element of the swimming. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about not doing the swimming. But yeah, I did a sprint at Dorney, and then I did the standard distance for the T100. Actually, the T100 made me realise I probably don't want to do like a full Ironman distance. I probably will end up doing it. It's like, nothing is ever enough for me. If I have the choice of doing it, I'm going to have to do it. But yeah, next steps is to find a 70.3 that I'm keen to do. So I think an Ironman, like a 70.3 Ironman, will probably be like my next steps potentially. We'll see.
Have you thought about countries or where you'd like to do that yet?
I think the idea of doing on abroad makes me a little bit nervous, just because I know sorry, I've got I don't know if you can hear that.
London.
Yeah, it makes me nervous to go abroad, just because I do know the faff of taking your bike abroad, taking all your kit abroad. So I think that's why Dorney appealed to me, just because I could jump in the car, shovel my stuff in, and I'll be there in an hour. But seeing other people doing triathlons abroad, like it does, you know, you can turn this into a little holiday, etc. I've just had a couple of mates who have done the T100 Ibiza, which I think was actually just gone weekend, which looks amazing. There was also, weirdly enough, I was in Italy the week before the one in Italy happened as well, which also looked amazing. So yeah, I think I would like to do one abroad. I just don't know which one. But to be completely honest, I don't want to do one where it has like a hilly run course or a hilly bike course. I'm just not interested in that.
Look, what somebody once said to me, an Iron 70% of doing an Ironman is looking online to find a flat course, and then when you've done one, 90% is looking for a flatter course. Like it's so true.
Yeah,
it is so true.
I don't want to shoot myself in the foot and do one that I'm like, oh yeah, this will be fine. It's a little bit hilly. Like we all know what the deal is when it comes to hilly courses for cycling and running, etc. And I don't need it in my life. I just want one that I'm going to enjoy. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't mind like a slightly hilly bike course, because as much as I hate hills, I actually think I quite enjoy them. So yeah, so I haven't thought about that, but it will. I think my next one will definitely need to be somewhere sunny. So yeah.
Do you think cycling's always going to be the thing? Because now swimming, and I know running's been there for a while, but they've both kind of entered the chat back again. Is that, do you ever find yourself like being like, I think I might put my trainers on a little bit more this week?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I think also when it comes into winter as well, it's harder to get on the bike. I will be training on Zwift, so I will get on my bike inside, but obviously it's not the same thing. And as I said, I'm doing this for fun. So like there's only so much sort of fun, etc. in cycling indoors on your own, as opposed to being out with other people or doing it for the headspace outside. And winter's just not, for me, it's just not that enjoyable. I will commute in the winter, like no problem, fine. But when it comes to weekend rides in the winter, like I don't find it that enjoyable. So running will definitely be more of a thing. And also, I think this time last year, I don't think I had my gym membership where we have a pool. So I didn't actually have access to a pool before I did all of this. Whereas now I've got that access, I do tend to find myself swimming a lot more. I did actually say to a friend again, because nothing's ever good enough, I was like, I actually want to do more with swimming. I want to find something that's more to do with swimming. So even that, if that's, you know, more sort of like open water swimming or something, I think that's something that I'd love to go into. So yeah, I feel like this winter we're definitely going to be doing more running and more swimming for sure.
And is it the same across all disciplines and all sports, and I guess all of your life as well, Paris? Like, do you take that I'm doing it for an enjoyment across everything? Is there anything that becomes like competitive, or is it all like, if I don't enjoy it, what's the point?
You know what? I'm quite a stubborn person. So genuinely, if I'm not going to enjoy it, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. Life is too short to, in my eyes anyway, life is too short to like be doing something that I have no interest in doing. And I'm not to say that, you know, if I'm doing a bike course or a run or something and I'm not enjoying it, I'm not just going to go and stop, you know, midway kind of thing. Obviously I'll get it done. But if it's the kind of thing where I'm like, actually, I really didn't enjoy that, it's not going to be done again. So yeah, I think that will always follow with everything. If I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to do it. If I lose, you know, if I fall out of love with it, I'm not going to continue doing it. It is purely for enjoyment and happiness. That's why I'm doing it.
And in terms of anybody listening to this right now that is getting into anything, whether it's swimming, biking, running, it's the start of their journey.
Yeah.
Those 4 years that you've been on this kind of journey of cycling, what would you say to them about starting something new?
For me, I think having a support system around you is so important. So as much as I said, you know, with this this first triathlon that I didn't really tell anyone about, and I just wanted to, you know, see if I enjoyed it and do it. I think anything new like this, it's so important to find someone that will come in, help you and support you do it. I have a lot of friends around me who have actually, I say dragged me into doing things, but actually dragged me into doing things for the best reason. They've encouraged me to do stuff. And I think that's super important. Like, find someone with the same mindset as you who wants to do something for the fun of it and go along with them. To me, that's been like one of the biggest things. I've got a lot of friends who have, dragged me along to things, and I appreciate them so much for doing that. That's probably more of like a lack of confidence kind of thing, that I've always needed someone there for moral support more than anything. But yeah, I would say that's probably the main thing. Like, you don't feel the need to have to like dive into something, without that moral support. I think it makes it more enjoyable when you've got someone else with you for that same reason, who's also trying to do it for enjoyment purposes.